very smart young man here, and I have the privilege of introducing him. He graduated magna cum laude from Azusa Pacific. He has a bachelor's degree in science and then a master's degree in business. He joined the Glendale Police Department in 1985, became a sergeant in 1995, lieutenant in 1999, a captain in 2004, and their chief in 2011. He's been our Glendale Police Chief since 2013, December 16, and I had the privilege of being there when he was sworn in. One of the joys of being the program director is you get to call your friends, and he's been a true friend, and he always says yes, and I know he's busier than busy. He's been married 25 years, has two very handsome and beautiful young sons, one who is following in his footsteps. So with no further ado, he's not the fire chief, but he's our police chief.
Well, I'm very excited to have this opportunity to talk with you today. This presentation is your presentation. So if you have questions, this is your time to ask the police chief and the newly appointed fire chief anything you'd like to ask. But we are, I don't have to tell you, living in times like we've never seen before. And in law enforcement, in public safety with fire, we are seeing things that we never thought we'd see. This is my 32nd year in law enforcement, and I can tell you that with absolute certainty, we don't know where we're going. We don't know what tomorrow will bring to us. So we are preparing for an unknown future, but we are moving forward using all kinds of different ways of collaborating, finding ways to keep us safe. You know, Glendale has now exceeded over 200,000 residents. We are recognized right now as the 3rd safest city in California, the 6th safest city in the United States. And there's different polls that'll have different numbers, but that's the general number that we're looking at. We were the 3rd largest city. We're currently the 4th largest city in the county of Los Angeles, the most populous county in the state of California. So giving you that context of where you live and work to understand the complexity of providing public safety in a city such as this. So when you look at the larger cities than us, basically LA and Long Beach pretty much, Santa Clarita, but during the day Santa Clarita clears out. We grow to over 1 million people traversing the city of Glendale on a daily basis on a workday. That's the number of people that come through this community, through our freeways, through shopping, coming into our Fortune 500 companies. It's a lot of people moving through this city. You don't really realize that. And when you complain about traffic and then you bring it into the context of nearly 1 million people traversing the city, sometimes it doesn't seem that bad. But I'm approaching my 4th year as a police chief, and I want to share with you some of the successes that we've had, and then I really want to give you an opportunity to ask questions. And one of the things that I can tell you right now that on Tuesday, I appeared before the County Board of Supervisors with the sheriff, and we spoke and we fought for a motion to be passed for a study to be done in LA County to determine the impacts of AB 109, Prop 47, and now Prop 57. Is everyone kind of aware of what those different things have done for criminal justice reform? Okay, let me explain quickly. So AB 109 was the first thing. What that did several years ago was transfer prisoners from the state prison system back to the local counties where they committed their crimes. Well, that meant over 6,000 prisoners that would normally have been housed in state prisons were sent to the LA County Jail that's already overcrowded. And then we had Prop 47, which we all voted for in California. AB 109 was done by the legislators and the governor to transfer prisoners to local counties. Prop 47 was voted on by the people. Had a very, very slick name to it, Safe Neighborhoods and Schools, which really had nothing to do with it. What it did is it took felony crimes, so crimes are either felonies or misdemeanors, and they took a lot of the felony crimes and made them misdemeanors. Now, possession of any drugs is just a misdemeanor, which means we can't hold them. If we arrest them with methamphetamine, heroin, cocaine, as long as it's not an amount that's for sale, we have to release them. Used to be if you stole over $450, you would go to jail. If you did it again, you could be charged with a felony for repeat offenders. Now, the number is $950. You can steal up to $950, and you can steal under $950 as many times as you want, and it's still a misdemeanor. Stuff like date rape, assault with a deadly weapon, a lot of these crimes that were to be felonies are now misdemeanors. And now Prop 57 is going to allow the release of additional prisoners that would normally be held as long as they deem them to be non-violent. So the parole board will have absolute authority to, if somebody was sentenced to, say, 25 years because of 4 or 5 crimes, but one of the crimes had a sentence of maybe 8 years, that's the time they're going to serve. And if they deem that they're ready to go out to the communities, they're going to go right back out to their communities. And now we're trying to look at another proposition or an assembly bill that would allow bail deviation. So what they're saying is bail hurts people that don't have the means to pay bail. So if you get arrested, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. But under the bail reform, instead of having to pay bail, they would just release them until their court date. You know, and you can only imagine how many of those people are going to stick around waiting for their court date. They're not. So these are the reforms we're seeing in California, and it is unprecedented. We have individuals that we are arresting at our shopping centers, the Galleria, the Americana, and everything, and they're coming from out of state. And we're asking them, why are you coming from out of state? They said, because we can commit crime in California and there's no real repercussions for us. And that is the absolute truth. We have that on tape. That's what we're dealing with. So those are the kind of challenges that we're facing in law enforcement today. And it also taxes our fire department because these individuals come with mental health issues, drug addiction, and all kinds of other issues. We had a lot of individuals that would come into our jail and then they would say, oh, I'm injured, I need medical attention. The fire department was responding over 150 calls a year to our jail, taking them off the street. So what we did is we have now a medical service company in our jail. They screen the prisoners in the jail, and 95% of them stay in the jail because we were taking them out to the hospital to have them evaluated, and we're in fights in the ER rooms at our local hospitals with these guys as they try to get away. So now we have medical services in the jail to keep our prisoners there, and it frees up the fire personnel, and it frees up my officers from having to go sit in an ER room that's overcrowded waiting for this person just to get cleared because they're saying I have chest pains or I have some kind of injury or something like that. In the areas of collaboration with fire and medical, we had a year and a half ago, we had a stabbing in the front steps of the police department. So an individual was on the phone calling into our dispatch center, and somebody walked up to him and ended up being a homeless individual who we know, but he had no history of any violence. And he, for some reason, started stabbing this individual in the front of the police department. The victim actually chased the suspect down, took the knife and stabbed him. Both of them ended up dying, and basically in the courthouse steps here in Glendale. As I watched the video of this, I saw that our officers couldn't really do anything. They were standing around. We couldn't bring fire in right away because we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know where the suspect was, and both individuals died. So in my previous agency, I'd started a program with EMTs. So our ambulance drivers are EMTs also. That's the kind of a lower entry level of medical care. They go through a 3-week course at UCLA, and then they actually go ride with the firefighters and the paramedics, and they treat they treat the victims alongside of our Glendale Fire paramedics, and they get us trained. So we now have 40 EMT officers out on the street working each and every day alongside with our fire personnel. We also have one officer who has paramedic certification, and we're in the process of trying to get him certified to be able to provide some level of paramedic services. And we're not trying to take over for fire. What we're trying to do is stabilize victims or individuals, sometimes they're even the partner officer, until the paramedics get there, until we can bring them into the scene safely. It's been an absolute collaboration that is unlike anything else. The Board of Supervisors has recognized Glendale for this type of involvement with fire and police. Traditionally, you see a lot of agencies where fire and police sometimes are both vying for the same resources, and sometimes it's adversarial. We don't have that here in Glendale, and it's unlike anything else most cities have ever seen. And when our city manager talks about it at USC, where he is a professor, people are always coming up to him saying, how can we repeat this type of activity? It's done by personalities. Greg Fish and I get along very well. We both leave our egos at the door, and we're just collaborating to work to make the best level of service for this community possible. One of the other things that we've started recently was a HOPE team, or a HOT team. It's a homeless outreach team. So we have officers who are specifically trained in mental health evaluation and treatment. We have a county mental health clinician assigned to our department. She shows up there every day, and her work day is working out of the police department, responding to calls involving those who have mental illness. It frees up the patrol officers to respond to calls because these calls are intensive, they take time, and we have to find the treatment for those individuals that need it. Every year we do a homeless count throughout the county. Every city does it. Our homeless count, we have about 200 that we count in Glendale. And to give you a perspective, Pasadena, a city a third smaller than us, has 2,000. There's no reason to be homeless in Glendale. Between Essentia and all the other groups out there that provide help to these individuals, we work with them each and every day. The story I'd like to tell is recently we had an individual that's been on the streets for 20 years. He was moving place to place to place, recently had put all of his camp into a parking structure and in a private business. We can't go onto private property and remove it, so we had to work with the property owner to find a way to resolve this. We were able to get that individual medical attention, mental health treatment, and we moved him into an apartment for the first time in 20 years. And that was done by a collaboration of working with nonprofits, fire personnel, and the police department and the county to find these kind of resources to help these people. We are seeing a tremendous amount of mental health challenges and addictions on the street. These propositions that allow these individuals to be released, the money saved from not incarcerating them was supposed to be put into treatment programs. The state and the county have not done that yet. And so when I spoke at the Board of Supervisors on Tuesday with the sheriff, we were pleading with the Board of Supervisors to create a blue ribbon committee to evaluate the impacts of these changes and reforms in criminal justice and how it is attributing to the rise in crime throughout the state of California. And we were fought viciously by many groups there, and they did not want this. They do not want to hear that these reforms are not working. And I understand, I am all for alternative justice, but we've got to have the right resources in place to help these people. We have arrested individuals 3 times in the same week for shoplifting at the gallery and the Americana. They actually carry a calculator in their pocket so they can make sure they add up the merchandise they're going to steal so it'll be under $950. Yes, plus tax.
Who are the people that are pushing for these type of things? Like you said, there's organizations that are fighting. What kind of organization? What are the name? Call them out.
They're well-intended organizations like Homeboy Industries and those individuals that are trying to help those that are released to find jobs and there are success stories. These are individuals that want to reunite families, and I'm all for that, but we have to do it in a more logical way than we're doing it now. So we ended up getting the majority of the votes we needed, and Catherine Barger led the charge for us. She led the charge for our area. She is very pro-law enforcement. She took a lot of lumps over this, as well as the sheriff and I, for speaking out, because a lot of groups don't want to hear this. And we're saying, we'll work with these systems are in place. These initiatives have passed, but all I'm asking for is give us the resources to treat these people, to help these people. Right now, we were able to get a $500,000 grant to help fund our new team. And that was by showing the need here in Glendale and the collaboration that we're currently doing. But that's only going to last a year or two. We need sustainable monies provided to us to be able to provide these organizations. I'm all for working with the ACLU and other groups that I believe have a noble cause. I have a cause also to provide public safety, and we do it here in Glendale in a very unique way. We do it with dignity, we do it with pride. You don't see our officers on TV accused of brutality, racism, or some of those other things that are going on. Some of the shootings that have occurred across this nation, my look at them, the information I get as I get debriefed, those are departments that have poor training, they have poor outreach with their community, and we don't have those here. Our officers receive the best training we can possibly provide, and we have a community that absolutely supports us and works with us. The reason we are one of the safest cities in California is not because I'm your police chief, it's because you, the community, supports us, and you call in on things that don't look right, and 9 out of 10 times you're absolutely right. When that car's cruising around, you think, doesn't look right, but I don't want to bother the police. Or sometimes we get people that say, I didn't call in because I didn't want to think that I was maybe profiling or something because the car didn't look right or the occupants didn't look right. But, you know, if something doesn't look right and it doesn't feel right, you need to call us so that we can go out and take a look. And we can just take a look and determine whether it's something or nothing. But we're seeing a rise in crime, and was property crime at first. We had a lot of property crime increases, but now, unfortunately, we're seeing an increase in violent crime. You know, the violent crime, the assaults are going up. Our officers are being assaulted 75% more than they were 3 years ago. People are fighting with their officers more and more. We're finding 55% more handguns on the street as we arrest these individuals or contact them. They're arming themselves.
Legal handguns? Or?
They're legal handguns. Some are stolen. Yeah, they're legal. And a lot of them some of them are stolen, things like that. That's a misdemeanor. That's just a misdemeanor, which means we bring them in, we book them, and if they don't have warrants or other reason to hold them, we cite them out onto the street. We have no choice. That's where we find ourselves. So hopefully we give you a little bit of good news. Traffic safety. Traffic issues are one of the biggest things I hear about on a daily basis, and I have an entire folder that I have put together that says I get these complaints on a daily basis. The council always is not afraid to forward them to me to please handle this for us. And so we send out a lot, but we are having great success in our traffic plan. We have implemented a lot of different strategies, working with public works, so we look at engineering, enforcement, and education. And we are down in traffic accidents in every single category. We're down even in fatalities, injury accidents, non-injury accidents, and pedestrian accidents are all down. And we believe our citation numbers are up. And sometimes, you know, people will call all the time that everybody's speeding on Mountain or on Glen Oaks in this area. And what we've done is we started a campaign where I wanted to do this experiment. We will put on our social media and we put out our signboard saying we are going to be doing speed enforcement on Glen Oaks this day between these hours. Then we go out and we do it. And then we follow up with, and these are the results. So we're telling you we're going to be here. Then we go out and actually do the enforcement, and then we report back through the various media platforms that we have and social media platforms. And we think that's having an effect and an impact on how we are able to drive down the accidents here in Glendale. As far as traffic congestion, I can tell you that our Public Works Director, Rubik, he works tirelessly trying to find ways. Now, all the signals that are adjacent to the freeways, we have no control over those. Those are Caltrans, so we can beg and beg to try to synchronize, but when you see some of those signals around freeways and they don't make any sense, they don't sync up with the rest of them, we don't have control over that. Doesn't mean we don't keep bugging them and asking and pleading with them to say, just let us run those signals, and we can sync them better with the way our city is. But with so many freeways traversing our city, those do have an impact. You know, especially on the busy streets of Brand and Central, those areas up there. So when you wonder sometimes why those signals don't jive with everything else, it's because we really don't have any control over them. They're under the control of Caltrans. Some of the other things that we're doing besides our medical programs and our homeless outreach is all of our officers have been trained as we call TAC medics. So they all have additional basic medical training to go out and provide some type of treatment in the field. We'll be providing all of our officers with Narcan soon, so that we have a huge increase in opium use and overdoses and heroin. So Narcan will take somebody who's basically out from a heroin overdose and it just snaps them alive. I mean, it's amazing to see. It's almost like bringing somebody back from the dead. And so we will have Narcan for all of our officers to work out there. Fire has it already. And all we're trying to do is help stabilize and supplement and give a helping hand until the paramedics get there to do the work that they need to do. We have trained all of our fire department in some of our tactics. So firefighters have vests and ballistic helmets, which is something that we never thought we'd see. So when we have a situation where we have a shooter or something, we'll bring fire up now, and instead of having them wait until we can get the location or the area clear, they can actually be escorted into a scene to provide medical attention with police officers protecting them, and they'll have some protection themselves. So that was a big hurdle because firefighters didn't sign up to go into shooting situations, and police officers didn't sign up to run into burning buildings, but they tried to do that just yesterday or the other day. we had a fire with a fatality. This last year, we had a fire, you probably heard, of a two-story building or home, and when our officers arrived, the house was fully engulfed, and an elderly woman was out on a balcony, and the officers knew they couldn't get in and she couldn't get out. They ran next door, grabbed a ladder, put a ladder up on the balcony, and 2 officers climbed up the balcony and carried this lady down. And one of our officers sustained second-degree burns to his hands. They've been recognized several times for this. And I said, what made you do that? And they said, well, we wouldn't have probably done it had you not allowed us and had us trained so much with the fire department that we felt that we could probably do this, and if we didn't do it, this lady was going to perish, and we couldn't stand down here and watch that. And it gave them, even though they didn't have the proper tools to do it, they did it because they had a level of confidence that they knew we could hear fire was coming. We knew they were going to get here. So if we could get this lady down, we knew that they could treat her and she'd be alive. So those are the kind of heroic things that are going on, the successes we're having with our traffic. Again, we're moving into a lot of the medical field because there's such a demand on that. So all these medical things that we're doing, they're amplified 10 times what fire has to do. They're getting more and more medical calls. This community, because of its being an affluent community, our changeover, our medium age is higher than the county average. So our community is aging because of the expense to move here. A lot of young families, quite frankly, can't start off in Glendale. This is their goal. The end goal is to get here. So what we're seeing, and I saw this at my previous agency, is the affluent cities, as we age, we have a bigger demand on fire. My mom fell the other day, and the fire department came out and helped my dad get her up. She didn't get hurt, but it was firefighters that came and got her up and got her back in her chair, and that's the kind of things that they do each and every day. And so I want to open it up to questions that you may have about what's going on in your police department. Yes, Rick.
There was a murder in the Montrose area there. Was any leads on that, or was that just a follow home, they took off and won't come back?
Thank you for that. I was going to talk about that and I forgot. I'll pay $5 for Rick. So we did. A couple of weeks ago, what we had was a lady was shot and killed, she was shot in the chest in front of basically her home. She and her husband own a sporting goods store in Linwood. And this is, I'll tell you this, but I can't tell Kiwanis, so you guys got to keep it quiet. So we get the call of a shooting victim. Again, fire rolls with us, and we get up there, and due to the injuries, the victim ended up dying. There were a couple witnesses that saw a red Dodge Charger in the area, heard the gunshot, and that's basically all we had. And what happened is, we didn't really have any real good leads. And somebody from Caltrans, a Caltrans worker, found a purse on the side of the freeway while they're doing their walkarounds out towards the LA area. This Caltrans worker is so keen to looking for what's on the freeway. LAPD has his prints and his DNA on file because he finds so much evidence on the sides of the freeway. and he knows, like he finds a gun or he finds something he knows has been thrown out from a crime. Well, he found this purse and he looked at it and saw it was basically full of personal items. He knew there was something to it, took it to LAPD. LAPD ended up contacting us because the victim's ID was in there. We said, yes, that's the victim of a homicide. In Glendale, we have our own crime lab. We are the only police department in the county of Los Angeles to have our own crime lab. The sheriffs have a crime lab, and LAPD has a crime lab, and Glendale has a crime lab. Our crime lab, we process our own DNA in-house. So with this purse, we found some DNA in it, which led us to a suspect who is a gang member from South Central LA with a history of arrest for robbery, who's out of jail. And through that, we identified some of his associates. The power of computers that are all linked together, we were able to find out all kinds of things. So we could trace his arrest back, see every person he was associated with in those arrests, and then start eliminating people, and then running those people to find out who, if any of them have a Dodge Charger that's red in color. And then we started finding out that the car had been stopped a couple of times prior to the homicide, once in Huntington Park, once in LA Sheriff's area. And we were able to actually identify all the suspects in this case. And arrests are pending right as we speak. So we will have that case wrapped up. That only happened because we have our own local DNA lab. Had we had to wait in line in the county, we wouldn't have got our results for 6 to 8 to 12 months. We had a series of robberies where we had a liquor store that was held up at gunpoint. As the suspect ran out, his hat fell off his head. From that hat, we were able to extract DNA. That same suspect went to LA. If you probably heard a few months back, there was a murder at a marijuana dispensary. Same suspect that did the robbery here in Glendale. There was a murder at a liquor store in Los Angeles on the kind of the border area of Glendale. Same suspect. Shot and killed a clerk. Shot and killed somebody at a marijuana dispensary. For some reason, did not shoot the clerk here in Glendale, thank God. We were able to get DNA off that hat in 3 days and turn it around, identify the suspect, and go out and arrest them. And even LAPD, as proud as they are, they said, there is no way this would have happened in our local crime lab. And they told us, you guys run with this. Even though they had the more serious crimes, they said, you guys have to do this. And we did it. And we were able to clear 2 homicides out of LA as well as our armed robbery. No doubt in my mind that suspect left on the street would have committed additional robberies and homicides. Yes.
So, Chief, I was the privileged person to entertain a roll call one day because we had a guy come up to my house and he was stealing some stuff, and I took a picture of him, and then when I was doing that, he decided he was mad at me, so he exposed himself. And when the officers came by, I said, can you send that to me? And I did, and I understand the roll call people loved it. But here's my question out of that incident.
You take a picture of it, is that what you said?
I was taking a picture of him, and while I was doing it, he decided to give me full frontal.
So how'd the lineup go?
So I did ask the officer that came by to take the report why I couldn't just email the picture in, because she goes, can you give us a description? I said, no, but here he is. And she goes, we're just not set up for that. Chief, it's 2017.
We have had a lot of discussion about that, even with traffic violators. Some people will send us video and send us license plates, pictures of license plates of reckless driving vehicles. And what I implemented was a program where I sent out our volunteers to areas where people say, people are running the stop sign every day, every minute of the day. Well, I don't have enough resources to put somebody there. So I send out volunteers and cadets, and they'll sit on an intersection or an area, take pictures of violators, and then give us the times that those violations are occurring, so we can then strategically deploy motor officers up there to do that. So we are working on that, and it would have to be somewhere where somebody's monitoring 24/7, and that's our dispatch center. So we actually have some technology limitations, but we are improving on that. So that will be something. Now you can send in stuff to the city right now, photos, but those are photos of like trash left out, or they're not emergent type
You're using the
things.
Glendale app. All I'm saying is it seemed odd that I had to give them an oral description, 5'10", African American, wearing a purple tank top, shorts, as opposed to just saying, here he is, and he's going down the street, just go get him.
We'll be there. We will be there soon. We'll get there. Yes.
I want to ask, you said so many things, but can you say something about the Glendale's cooperation or compliance with the federal regulation? Like there is something nowadays came sanctuary cities across the nation.
Yes.
What is happening in there?
We are not a sanctuary city. We are not a sanctuary city. We are the only jail, besides LA County Jail in the County of Los Angeles, that still has a cooperative agreement with ICE. ICE does book prisoners in our jail. Years ago, they would book up to 3,500, 4,000 a year. Now they're booking about 200. And we have, in Glendale, you have a federal task forces. We have U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force working out of our department. We have FBI, Homeland Security, ICE. We have all these federal agencies that work out of our department. There's a part of my department that I can't even access because I don't have the top secret clearance. I don't need it. These are our Organized Crime Task Force and Intelligence Task Force. A lot of the terrorism you're hearing about that's going on around the nation or around the world, I mean, I was in Barcelona with my wife a few months ago in those same areas where these attacks occurred. We were then in Italy where a car bomb had happened months later also. But we have access to information because of our cooperative agreements with these federal agencies. If we cut off cooperating with ICE, we will lose a lot of those other cooperative agreements. We will jeopardize the safety of this community. We have stopped attacks in the city of Glendale that were being planned. We have been part of this task force has prevented terrorist attacks in the county of Los Angeles because of our efforts in our intelligence gathering and our cooperation with the federal government. No other local police department has that except for the sheriffs and LAPD. And quite frankly, by the time, they're not gonna really worry about intelligence that they have about Glendale on a real, they're gonna worry about their home agency first, their own jurisdiction. They'll give it to us, but it'll be delayed. We don't have that kind of time. These things are happening. We chase down leads all the time. Our officers will work tirelessly chasing down leads. Because of the internet, threats are put up all the time. And we are a target. We definitely are a target. We're a target because of a lot of the diversity that makes our community the special community it is, but it also creates a target because what's going on around the world has an impact on Glendale. And so, we are not immune to it, but you can be assured, if I'm allowed to keep the assets that I have in place today, we will be able to keep this community safe, or as safe as it can possibly be. Now, we don't go out and do raids. I mean, I'm the product of an immigrant. We don't do that. I'm not looking to oppress people. We do constitutional policing. We police within the confines of the U.S. Constitution in a way that treats people fair and respectful. But violent individuals who do not belong in this country, I believe, should be removed. And it's not just Mexico, it's all over. We have worked with our federal partners to remove people to nearly every country in the world that have been here or committing crimes. So it's not just Mexico, we've sent people back to Russia, Armenia, South America, Europe, you name it. But we're not separating families from a hardworking individual parent. These are people that are documented violent individuals. And we don't do the deportation, ICE does the deportation. All we do is provide them housing and they pay us. It actually works better because what happens is when they're a local person from this area and we are detaining them for ICE, their family can come see them every single day in our jail and talk to them. When you put them in a federal detention center, that doesn't happen. You can hear the stories of, I think, the one individual whose daughter has been on the radio quite a bit saying she hasn't seen her father but maybe 2 times since he was picked up outside of her school. If we become a sanctuary city, I'll wrap it up, we will lose millions and millions of dollars in grant funds. I will lose the ability to have this intelligence, our task forces, and I believe it'll put this community in jeopardy. So, with that being said, I believe the course that we have done, and you can go on our website, and right under my spot on the website is all of our immigration policies and procedures for the public to see, including our contract with ICE. So it's absolutely transparent to see what we're doing. And so at this point, the council and I are seeing eye to eye that we're not a sanctuary city, but yet we're not going to be an arm of ICE. All we do is provide the local law enforcement, but we will provide them the services that assist them if they need it. And if we don't, they're going to go out. They've already been out in Glendale doing raids and they don't even tell us. And we get calls of men in jackets and guns pointed and we don't even know they're out there. That's a dangerous combination to occur, and I don't want that to happen. So we need to have this cooperation with them. So hopefully I shared a little bit, didn't scare you too much, but there are a lot of good things going on. Remember the positive things we're doing with fire. Remember that we're able to provide now a higher level of medical service in this community, and you have special services like your DNA lab and our task forces that help keep Glendale safe and allow us to be a premier agency. That's why a lot of businesses want to come here. Once they hear about all the resources we have and the safety measures we have, their employees feel even more comfortable wanting to come here and work. The problem is we don't have housing, but that's a whole different planning issue, so you have to have Phil Lazafane in here to explain that. So thank you very much. God bless all of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for telling us about all the things that you're doing, and thank you for helping to keep us safe and changing the world for us.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. I want to give you this little trinket. It is a bracelet, and you can give it to the female who is closest to your heart.
Oh,
On the back side of the little tag is our 4-way test, and you may share it with anyone you wish.
thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much for coming today.
My pleasure.
Yeah.